Hello, friends. It is Saturday morning, the 27th of September. And so today we'll talk about a couple of things. And the first item that a question was asked was about right speech. And that I've got several things that I want to talk about today, so we won't talk about right speech for the whole session. Now, there's two ways to approach right speech. There's the ordinary way, and then there is the noble way. And that the ordinary way means that it's like it's a precept, or it's a should. It's something that you would teach children in order to keep them socialized. And then we can talk about right noble view as noble, noble speech. Now, normally, we have to sort of guard our mouth, depending upon the situation that we're in. The way that you would talk if you were a teenager, the way that you would talk to your teenage friends would be considered bawdy, ugly, and not appropriate for many social places. And so we can say then that right speech is situational. It depends upon the context that you're in. And that may sound like it makes it extra complicated. But really, we can say that there's a hierarchy of things, and that the top dog, or the big item, is to not tell deliberate lies. Now, in the West, especially within Catholicism, they have the concept of a little white lie as opposed to big black lies. But in our context, let's not make that division and just say that there's deliberate lies, and then there's deliberate truth, and then there is deliberate not knowing what. And we can say then that much of what we would think would be the truth would actually be just a concept or a viewpoint or an idea of how we think things are, rather than actually how they actually are. And in general, we don't know how things actually are because we're too busy making up stories that we like and not paying attention to what's in reality. So, right noble speech is not a set of rules, but it's rather, let us say, an investigation of what's real. And then that's what we would say. And so there is also others, like gossip. And there's two kinds of gossip. There is ordinary gossip, and then there's malicious gossip. Now, malicious gossip means that we talk to someone in order to turn them against a third party. Eric Berne calls these kind of conversations, he calls them psychological games with an intention of making people feel bad. One of the games that he mentions is, let's pull a fast one on Joy, which means then that I don't like Joy, and I want you to go hurt Joy in my behalf. And so I'll convince you about how bad Joy is, so that you turn against Joy rather than being his friend. Well, that kind of malicious gossip probably also contains a lot of direct lies. And it's ignorant because you're not paying attention to your own feelings You just don't like joy and you want to do something about him. And so this would be the ordinary kind of gossip, which is not looking at what's going on the inside of us. So another kind of speech that's not noble would be harsh speech, calling people names, as opposed to talking about behaviors or activities. The Christians have a concept that doesn't seem to work very well for them, is that you love the sinner and hate the sin. In that regard, we can talk about behavior being, let us say, not appropriate and hurtful or harsh. But again, the attitude that we have or our own mind is the issue, not the person. And then the fourth kind is referred to as frivolous speech. Now, what I would say is frivolous speech is that we could talk about all kinds of things, but if we have Dhamma in mind, then we can use all kinds of things to point to the Dhamma, put it back on reality, and that in ordinary language, we could say that there's a lot of topics that would, in fact, be frivolous speech. An example of that would be talking about politics. Now, talking about the weather, we may, in fact, not be talking frivolous. We might, in fact, be talking about there's a storm coming. Or we can talk about, isn't the weather nice? And that's just kind of a little ritual, doesn't have much to it. So we're not talking about frivolous speech in the sense of one or two words, but rather getting into a conversation that leads us away from the Dhamma. So these are the four that are listed in some of the suttas. But in other suttas, it talks about right and noble speech in the sense of, is it true? Is it timely? Is it kind? So these are the things that you would want, and beneficial. If it's true and beneficial and said at the right time, and that it's friendly, then it also not only fits the other things that we were talking about, the other four ways of looking at it, but this is a higher quality and it's often situational. Now, the problem with the right time is that if you're talking to a larger audience, for instance, when we post on Discord, we can post a direct message to one person, and then we can work with timeliness. But on the general Discord, since a whole lot of people are going to be reading it, it's more difficult to have the timing right so that it really penetrates them and gets right to the Dhamma. So these are the ways of right speech, but all of them have to do with, are we looking? Are we, in fact, practicing the Eightfold Noble Path at that point in time when we choose to post or choose to speak? Is it timely? Is it appropriate? Is it useful and valuable? Is it true? These are the things that we want to post and that we can talk about. Actually, let's use the example of frivolous speech. If you find frivolous speech on the Discord group, you wouldn't say you're being frivolous here. You would say instead that topic is something that we're not interested in. Now, the Stoics have a kind of a tool that they can use to cut through a lot of the junk. And that Stoic tool I don't find in the suttas, but you can start off any conversation or anything where you actually the intention is to criticize someone through the Dhamma. Then you would start it off with something like, well, many people have that view, but there's another way of looking at it. And that kind of softens the blow rather than starting off, that's a stupid thing to say. We'll start off with, well, many people have that view. And it's certainly better than starting off with, you're so stupid. That would actually be harsh. Okay. So instead of calling somebody as stupid as you know they are, I mean, some of the stuff that's posted is really stupid. But we can start that conversation off with something like, well, that view that you have is very common. And that would be actually quite true, because most of the stupid things that people say is widespread. And so it's a view that would be held by ordinary people en masse. And so this is basically a good way of starting off conversation, is by starting it off with that view that you have is widely held. I understand what you're saying. Many people hold that view. And so this would be a way of starting off a conversation where you're going to say something that ultimately contradicts what they have to say. So this is basically what right speech is don't go around making enemies in the name of truth. Use friendly speech. So does anybody have any questions about this? How about you, Earl? Do you have any things to say about right noble speech?
It feels good. And speaking ill doesn't feel good. Even though you think you can get away with speaking ill, even just a little bit, you lose your jhana if you do that.
Actually, you probably already lost it. That's why we want to cut into somebody. So one of the things that's very interesting is that these precepts about noble speech actually is not presented in the suttas as a precept, but rather it's put in the sutta number 117 on right noble eightfold path. That way of looking at it is that if the mind is noble, if the mind is clean and pure, then our speech is naturally going to be wholesome. If our mind is wholesome, then the speech will be wholesome. If the mind is filled with happiness and joy, then we'll speak from happiness and joy. If we feel criticized by what is posted, then we'll respond as if we're hurt and respond critically. So it depends upon the state of mind that one is in as to how you would respond, because your speech is not going to change your mind. It's the mind that's going to change your speech. So, RJ, do you have something to say about that?
It's completely true. I notice it in myself that when I'm upset about something unrelated, also I generally tend to be not so good in speech with the people around me. I noticed that recently.
Okay, so if you note that you're not in the best of mood right now, that if you note that you've got unwholesome thoughts and unhappy feelings, the best thing to do is to not say anything, to be quiet,
Yeah,
to guard the mouth door so that we don't harm somebody with our attitude.
yeah, and like it's beginning for me that I can notice because usually earlier when it used to happen, then I would be already, blaming the people around me more, and I would be believing it more that I'm kind of, let's say, upset with them for a reason. But now I can see more that it's not about them. It's just that, inside me, it's not about them.
So, Rose, do you have something to say?
I don't. Thank you.
All right. So, Navid, how about you?
I did have one thing to add actually, and I think maybe this comes after a while, but teasing people, it's very fun when your intentions are very whole. So, especially online or with work, right? Somebody will get very serious about something, and poke fun of them to kind of wake them up. And I think they know the intention is well, so that's probably why they take it well. But if you're not, maybe I don't know, like into the Dharma as much, and you have the wholesome feelings, what you say can be hurtful.
Right, you
But
take
it's
it
very fun
personally.
after.
That's actually, we could say that would be the primary thing to look at is what we're about to say. Are they going to take that personal or not? Now, good Dhamma friends are not going to take it personal because they've already got enough Dhamma going, but brand new people on our side or ordinary people out there in the world are probably going to take what we have to say personally. This would be an example of that is that someone came to the Buddha really angry about something, and he was angry and talking and accusing, etc., like that, to get things off his chest. And after he was finished, the Buddha didn't interrupt him after the first thing. He waited until the guy had finished what he had to say, and then the Buddha asked him a question, because he was probably a wealthy Brahmin. He asked him, if you gave a dinner party, if you had food prepared for some guests, and some of them didn't come, and others came and stayed a short time, and wound up that nobody ate the food that you had prepared, then whose food is that? And this Brahmin had to think a second, and he said, well, I guess if they left it, it's still mine. And then the Buddha says, that's also true about feelings, especially anger. You came and served us anger, and we didn't eat it. Therefore, the anger still belongs to you. Okay, so this is the way of handling people, that when they're angry or upset or whatever like that, is probably not a good idea, Errol, to play with them or tease them, but rather to say something along the lines of what the Buddha said, or along the lines of the Stoics, in the sense of, well, I understand that many people would be really upset about that, but there's another point of view, another way of looking at it. And so this would be the way of approaching things. Now, as far as teasing goes, we do a lot of teasing here in the house. Just last night, in fact, we had quite a session. We've got actually a sort of a pet tease that we use often. And it's around the word "ba," and the word "ba" means kind of crazy or stupid. And I'll say to Kitty, my daughter, "Kitty, your mom's ba, mere ba," and everybody laughs. And then we'll say the cat is crazy, "Meow ba." Or I'll talk to Mom and say, "Mom, Kitty's crazy." And then sometimes I'll say, "Kitty, kun pa ba," which means that Daddy is crazy. And it always brings up a lot of joy and cohesion with our with our family. But there's other things that we do to pass the time that has to do with unifying the family, making us a whole group. And so we're quite playful that way, teasing one another to keep the joy in our household a community effort. And so that would be something that you can think about is that if you want to have community cohesion, teasing one another will work. However, you want to tease in a way that the one who is the most shy or the most the youngest one or the one that's the most sensitive, don't tease them first, but rather tease someone who can handle the teasing and get everybody happy with that, and then you can tease the child too. So that's what I mean by timing. Also, that issue of timing has to do with, well, many people hold that view. However, okay, so that would be saying things in a timely way. We prepare the person so that they don't take it personally. So the next thing is everybody clear with right noble speech? Anybody got any last things to say about it? Anybody, huh?
Yeah, I will say one thing. It's kind of been mentioned a bit here, but yeah, when we're telling stories, you guys will hear Dhammarato does the same thing, the Buddha does the same thing, where you can make the stories kind of about someone else, or it can even be a made-up story when we're relating the Dhamma. We don't have to make it super personal about the person we're talking to. Like, you know, you're
Yes, that's an important point. Is that in general, the Dhamma is taught as third person rather than taught as second person, and is generally not taught in first person in the sense of the monks talking about themselves, but rather they'll make an example of a third party, like the story of me telling you about a conversation that the Buddha had with an angry Brahmin. And you will then, on your own, identify with that angry Brahmin rather than us talking about your anger. We can talk about that anger over there. And so Mackie is absolutely right. We talk in general in third person. That puts some separation so that people don't take things personally.
Dhammarato, can I say something about the speech?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Karwan.
Something which I lack, which I'm really not good at, is the speech. I tend to be very honest, and with that, I'm very good at making enemies and making people not like me,
Mhm.
because I value truth basically above anything. and it is almost like we need to become like diplomats. You know, the diplomatic people are very good at speech in a way. They lie, maybe
Not
also too,
use
but
the word, I would not use the word diplomats because diplomats almost always have a hidden agenda,
that's correct. Yeah,
and
but they are good
have a
in
hidden
a way.
agenda. Our hidden agenda is going to be joy. That in fact your hidden agenda is truth,
Mhm.
and I can understand because of your background that you're really big on truth. And I would say that we can change that view from a you got to be correct, you got to have right speech in the sense of telling the truth, because that means that we forget about these other things. So I would say then that the right place to come from is not truth, but joy.
Yep,
Joyful.
yep, yep.
That we
That
can
is
be
a good
joyful
question.
in the face of a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from the position of truth, then you're not going to be so joyful in the face of crap.
Yeah.
So let's have the let us say our life's position should be coming from a position of joy, not truth.
Yeah. At least joy first. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Joy comes first, and then truth takes a second position.
Yeah. That's a very good one. Thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, this is what we mean by then friendly speeches always come from a state of joy. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Karwan. So, by the way, Scott, hello, friend. Good to see you again.
Hello. Good to see you too.
So, let's change the topic a little bit and go for the basic teaching that the Buddha gave is a good place to start. It's in several suttas. I know of at least 4, but one that's the primary place that the Buddha talks about it is in Sutta number 22, the simile of the snake, where he says both formerly and now, I teach only one thing. That's an important point. The Buddha only taught one thing. He taught dukkha dukkha nirodha. Now, dukkha means dissatisfaction, though it's translated as suffering. Suffering is a great big thing, and we're looking at little tiny things in the moment rather than great big things over a long period of time. And so suffering is not a good translation of the word dukkha, but rather the better translation is irritation or dissatisfaction, disappointment, wanting something that you don't have. And that this is the entire teaching. However, we can break that down into the Four Noble Truths, which fit correctly in the sense that there is dukkha. Now, a lot of people misunderstand that to be life is dukkha, but life is not dukkha. In fact, everybody clings to life. We have, in fact, instinctual behavior, the self-preservation instinct, that no matter how old we get, we still want at least a little more time, maybe a month, maybe a year, maybe a day, maybe the time it takes to eat a meal. But if we are very clear about it, we can bring it down to, well, just one more breath. That's all I need. But we all still want to live, even when there is danger, when there is disappointment, when there is pain, when there is suffering. We still cling to life. And that means then that life itself couldn't possibly be dukkha. It's something else. And then the Buddha says that there's actually a cause for dukkha, and it is not being alive. that you can be alive and not be in dukkha at all. That in fact, dukkha has a whole lot to do about your attitude. And you can have the attitude that is free from dukkha. Like I said a moment ago with Karwan, instead of coming from the point of truth, because truth often has some dukkha around it, but we can come from joy. And joy has generally not nearly as much or no dukkha at all. And that there is a path to come out of the dukkha. And that is the Eightfold Noble Path, and that's the path that we talk about a lot. And it's got some specific points to it. But today, right now, I want to, let us say, focus in on the second noble truth, which is the cause of dukkha. Now, the cause of dukkha, I've heard a lot of Mahayana and others talk about dukkha is caused by grasping, clinging. And that's actually not what the sutras say. That in fact, it's not clinging, but it's ignorant clinging. That it's not wanting something that you don't have, it's doing so ignorantly. Or ill will or anger or hatred is not an issue. It's the fact that we do that hatred, we do that anger ignorantly, out of wrong views. And so, for instance, Karwan would come from the view of you got to tell the truth, and therefore I get angry when people are not saying things that I want them to say, because what I know is the truth. Okay, instead of doing that, coming from that viewpoint of truth, we can come from the viewpoint that everything is all right, even if they don't agree with what I'm saying, or I don't agree with them. We can still be okay. So the cause of suffering then is a major teaching of the Buddha, and it is almost always built upon views and ignorant views. That's the basic foundation. Now, the Buddha in some suttas, like number 38, has a full-blown discussion of the second noble truth, and a full-blown discussion of the second noble truth would be called Paticca Samuppada. Now, Paticca Samuppada is badly translated as dependent origination. So let's break that down a little bit. Anything that happens, anything that originates, is dependent upon something else. In the West, we could call that the cause and effect, and everything operates according to a cause and effect. Then, in fact, this is what the second noble truth has to say is that there is a cause for dukkha. It's not inherent. And so if we can look at the way that the Buddha puts together this 12-step teaching of dependent origination, or Paticca Samuppada, basically what he's giving there is a roadmap of how the mind works that leads us down that road or down that path into dukkha. Now, we can say then that the second noble truth has to do with feelings, in the sense of liking something and wanting it, and it has the feeling of ill will or not wanting something or finding something difficult to put up with. And then we can talk about ignorance or delusion. So basically, we can say then that it's feelings, ignorant, unwise feelings, that are the cause of dukkha. And that in the teaching of Paticca Samuppada, we start with ignorance itself, eventually wind up in feelings, and those feelings lead to dukkha. So you can see that there's a clear pathway with all the parts of the second noble truth demonstrated in this dukkha path this dependent origination path, and it starts on in dukkha. Now, a lot of people think that this dependent origination is a straight line chronological from this step to this step to this step to this step to this step. But in fact, many of these, we wouldn't even call them steps, but aspects are interrelated and intertwined. And that in the sequence, it goes from the start of ignorance, and we can see that every baby is born ignorantly. Can't move our hands, can't move our feet, can't talk, can't go to war, can't do all kinds of things because we don't know how. But the baby starts to pick stuff up, but they're still picking things up from mom and dad ignorantly, or learning things on their own, but they're still in a state of ignorance. So much of childhood is a learning process that's absolutely full of ignorance. So that when we grow up, that ignorance that we have compounded and built up over time, and in fact, one of the important qualities of this pile of memories that we pile up is how to feel. This is not a mental dialogue, but it's actually a pre-program for how to feel. Just like Karwan is saying that he's actually pre-programmed to look for truth. A lot of us are pre-programmed to protect ourselves. Some of us are pre-programmed to take things from other people because we want them. So these programs are basically based in feeling much more so than language or viewpoints, but rather that we do what we feel to do. So now that we come to the present moment, let us say that some input happens. We see something. We see an image on television. That image may be a person that we've seen before, maybe a political figure. And when you see an image of that political figure, you'll have a feeling automatically. I like him, or I don't like him, or who is that? Don't know who it is. All right. So this actually means that when we are actually bringing in input, we have to process it. That actually talking about the eyes, that the eyes see colors, shapes, and movement, but that's about all. That in fact, when we see the image of a person on the YouTube or whatever, we have to process that that's a face. And then we have to process, do we know that face based upon all the faces that we have stored up? And so this is a processing, and that processing is called, in the Pali, is Namarupa or Vinya, and we would use the word perception or the process of processing the data that comes in. And that our processing is often faulty. In other words, you see a face, and instead of just saying, yeah, that's a face, we can say, oh, I really like that guy, I'm going to vote for him. Or we'll say, oh, that dirty son of a bitch, I'm going to throw him out. And actually, all that means is that we've already gotten a process going that winds up telling us our story. And the important point is that that storytelling is what then contacts us in order for feelings to arise. Well, if the feelings already are there in the processing, then we have a pretty easy way of figuring out how we're going to feel. So the storytelling that we do then brings up the feelings, and depending upon the past memories and the way that we process, that story is either going to be ignorant or it's going to be wise. So if we can see wisdom at that time when our stories contact us, we have control over our feelings. But if we're not mindful, if we're not watching what's going on, then the old feelings will arise ignorantly. And it's that ignorant feeling that brings about our grasping, our clinging, our wanting things that we don't have, all of that ignorant stuff that leads us into the state of creating a self and feeling bad. So, Karwan, you had a question about this. Now, I've given a basic introduction to Paticca Samuppada, that we wind up in bad feelings because we're in the habit of having bad feelings. And when we process information coming from the outside, we process in those feelings so that the feelings are built into the story. So you'll have, as part of your story processing, the word truth. You got to tell the truth. But that is actually an ignorant kind of a truth. And so you're going to wind up feeling bad when people tell you something that you don't agree with. So do you have any particular question, Karwan, about this process?
I just want to know, so those 12 links or steps, they happen, basically they happen at the same time. It's like boom. And all those things are present and Dukkha appears.
I would say no. First off, let's talk about a mind moment. Now, a mind moment can be anywhere from a little bit less than a tenth of a second, maybe down to a 20th of a second. But most people take 3 or 4 tenths of a second for a mind moment. And some mind moments are longer than others. And we need to see that the sight would be one mind moment, the processing would be another mind moment, the story would be another mind moment, then contact and feelings would be another mind moment. And so you could say then that the Paticca Samuppada takes about a half or more of a second. We don't respond instantly. The snakes and cats don't respond instantly, but their reaction time would be down to about, let us say, down to maybe 70 or so milliseconds.
The cat's
Tenth of a second. Go ahead.
the cat's reaction time is slightly faster than the snake, so it's really funny to watch cats like bop snakes on the head because they're like a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, if you look at these things with not just cats, but meerkats and honey badgers, and especially the mongoose, are well known to have very fast reaction times, but snakes are pretty slow with their reaction time. The funny part is that snakes are actually pretty slow, and it depends on the human as to whether they're going to be fast enough or not. And good snake handlers or whatever, they've got pretty fast reaction times. But most people, when they see a snake, they slow right down. They become afraid to go into a state of freeze. And then the snake bites them.
Yeah.
All right. And so cats and meerkats and badgers and mongooses would be around a 20th of a second, down to as fast as 50 microseconds for reaction time. To where the humans, they're going to take on 3 or 4 tenths of a second before they react. They're slow. Humans are slow, but the mind itself is fast. But look how many cycles the mind goes through before the reaction times comes. So, if the reaction time is very fast, and in fact they make the reaction very simple. There's a program or several on the internet that can help you test your reaction time. It's not accurate, but it's useful. And what they do is they have a red screen. That's just a blank red screen, and then they'll turn it to green and start timing. How long does it take the watcher to see that green screen, recognize that the change has happened, and then motivate the finger to click the mouse? Many people are around 350 milliseconds to do that. Slow. Snake's going to bite you if you're that slow. They also say, and as a time thing, is that black belt karate people or race car drivers, kids out on their motorbikes. Alex, I'm thinking about you right now, that their reaction time is generally down about 200 milliseconds. Well, that's 200 milliseconds. That's a quarter the speed of a snake. And then people who are very highly well trained, the top of the group, Olympic stars, champions, perhaps a Babe Ruth now and then, sports idols, their reaction time on these tests can get down to about 1.8. 180 milliseconds, which is not very fast. Humans are not really all of that fast because we do a lot of processing. And there's also the quality that there is kind of fast thinking and slow thinking. And fast thinking is reactionary. And let us say in the time when we lived around a lot of snakes, whatever, that reaction time actually kept us alive. And the sports use reaction time to stay alive. The example that would use is that there are two boxers that are fighting with each other, and one of them starts to think about his poor old mother. While he's thinking about his poor old mother, the other boxer's going to nail him right in the face because he's not paying attention. So our own thought process actually will interrupt what we're doing. I just saw a clip of a movie. I think the name of the movie was Babylonia, when happened in the 1920s, where one of the flappers picked up a snake and was holding it to show everybody, and the snake bit her right on the neck. That's crazy that she would pick up a poisonous snake and not pay attention to the snake. She starts paying attention to her friends, saying, "Look at me, I've got a snake." And there the snake bites her because she's not paying attention to what's going on. She's paying attention to what's happening within her own mind. Okay, that means then that in order to create a fast reaction time, we actually have to be in reality, to not do much processing. But humans don't live in that kind of environment much anymore. And so most of our instant fast reactions are often wrong. Just like on the internet, Carwan, somebody says something really stupid, and you immediately start typing saying, "That's stupid," because we're reacting to it as opposed to thinking it out, looking carefully, considering the odds. So we could say then that Dhamma is a slower reaction because we want to look at how we feel, we want to look at the situation, we want to pay attention to what's going on, and then react wisely rather than as fast as we can, instant reaction. So this is the way that the mind works. It can work fast or it can work slow. Can we, in fact, begin to slow down the mind so that we can see what's really going on? Can, in fact, you can see these feelings that come up, the feeling of disgust, the feelings of anger about what people are posting, and reprocess. Look again. Figure it out. Take some time. That we don't have to react anymore. That in fact, we can choose carefully our response rather than reacting. This is actually what the teaching of Paticca Samuppada is really all about, is let's start paying attention to how we feel and pay attention to the fact that we can change those feelings in mid-process. So you don't like what he said, Carwan, but instead of typing about it that you don't like what he says, you can go back and gladden your mind and say, oh, that doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm happy now. And now we can respond with joy. We can, in fact, change the way that we feel. That's marvelous. But that's not a teaching that's often given in our world, in the world of ordinary people. They think that the way that they feel is built in, or that's who I am, or worse, that our feelings control our lives. That's what happens with most people is that they let these feelings control their lives. But the Dhamma says, don't let those feelings control your life. Go back and reprocess, reorient, bring some wisdom in, and then feel the way that you want to feel. And then we can process things much, let us say, wiser. Because if we don't process and we just allow whatever stories that we've told ourselves to bring up whatever feelings that we're in the habit of already having, that's an important point, is that most feelings that you have are feelings that you started accumulating and bringing in from building habits from childhood. So you don't feel the way that you would feel as an adult. You feel the way that you felt when you were a little child. But if we can reprocess, reprogram, and think clearly through it, then we can feel the way that we want to. But if we feel ignorantly, that feeling is normally going to bring us into a state of dukkha. So from in Paticca Samuppada, that teaching is from feelings, it goes to wanting, grasping, loving, caring about, etc., into insisting, which would be clinging and carrying, and that is what causes dukkha. The more you care, the more dukkha you have. Now, I make that point. Christina and I was just talking about this. That look at it from the perspective of a vet. When the old lady brings her sick cat to the vet, she brought that cat to the vet because she really cared about that cat. She's upset because her cat is sick. But the vet is not upset. He's seen a lot of sick cats. He's studied sick cats. He's an expert at sick cats. And so he knows just what to do about cats, and he gets the medicines or whatever that's needed for that sick cat to make it better, while the old lady, the owner of that cat, is hysterical. She's crazy about that poor cat. Now, you can take that whole point from the old lady caring about her cat into the new mother, maybe 30 years old. She's got a 10-year-old son, and she doesn't operate with her son like the vet would operate with a cat and give the child just what he needs. Instead, she loves that child, and so she cares about that child, and she often then is really frustrated and uptight and in a state of dissatisfaction and dukkha because the kid's not doing what she wants him to do. And so the worst case of motherhood would be the case where the mother loves the child too much. So she's not thinking about it in a wise way. In fact, she's reacting rather than responding. And so she winds up in suffering. She winds up in dukkha And then she operates with that child from that state of dukkha rather than from the state of wisdom. This is actually the teaching of the Buddha called Paticca. Now, we can in fact practice so that we don't operate that way. We can practice to look at the kind of thoughts we have before we post on Discord. We can look at the way we feel. We can look and investigate and see how we feel, and then we can change those feelings. So if we have an unwholesome thought that leads to an unwholesome feeling, we can say, aha, I see that. Now, it's very natural for people to be able to see their unwholesome thought and say, you should not have an unwholesome thought. Well, that's just another unwholesome thought right there. Fussing at ourselves, loving ourselves, in fact, too much. And so we react to our own unwholesome thoughts, just like a mother reacts to her son that's not doing things that she wants him to do. So we often criticize ourselves rather than being able to happily see our own mind in a state of dukkha, in a state of disrepair, in a state of unwholesomeness, and then immediately change that into the wholesome. Aha, I see that unwholesome thought. Now I can change it to a wholesome thought. Well, in fact, by saying, aha, I see you, and I can change that thought to a wholesome thought, that's already a wholesome thought. The mind's really that fast. So we can change our thoughts and change our feelings and then respond rather than react. So we slow things down, we take a look, we take another look, we take a third look, and then we make some changes. This is the Eightfold Noble Path. And so we can say then that this real original teaching of dukkha, Dhammarato, breaking down into its various parts, if we apply the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, and start operating that, we can actually change the way we process the second noble truth so that we wind up in that state of the third noble truth, which is freedom from dukkha. We have joy. And so, like Taiwan was processing from truth, now we're going to start changing that attitude from, oh no, and instead of getting angry about the ignorance of the second noble truth, let's just be happy. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Then, in fact, we could say that this teaching of the Buddha in Pali of dukkha, Dhammarato, we can actually translate that into modern English of dukkha is like worrying about something. Worry, doubt, frustration, anxiety, and don't worry. Just change that worry into happiness. You're all right already. So this is the basic teaching of the Buddha, and it has a practice to it. We have to keep practicing over and over again by remembering to look. Remembering to look and to change. Remember to look and to change. Those three things, which is ditthi, sati, and viri. Those three things to remember, sati, to wake up and to take a look and to make a change. So that you remember to look, you see, I love the truth, I want the truth. And we can say, wait a minute, the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it'll bite you in the tail. Jesus had the phrase, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But a better way of looking at it is the truth. You can know the truth, and the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. And Caron, because you're attached to the truth, you won't get pissed off. It doesn't set you free. And when you're free, what are you free from? You're free from dukkha. And so don't get pissed off because of the truth. Truth is not as nearly as important as the way that you feel. Then, in fact, you feel bad often because of the truth. So let's not have truth as our number one item, our goal, but rather looking clearly to see exactly what's there rather than having an ideal of truth. Whew.
Dhammarato, can I ask some questions about the
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. So the Buddha chastised Ananda for Ananda telling him he understood Paticca Samuppada. So I'm definitely going to butcher this. But when there's dukkha, knowing that things are, or phenomenon are empty, that leads to quenching. So without even seeing Paticca Samuppada, seeing the dependent, if it's almost like kind of going to the end of it, that's how it kind of feels to me, where it's just quenching directly. But also, Paticca Samuppada is this manual of every interaction that can happen. It's almost like when you're a monk and you've been doing this for on retreat, and then the level of sati is, yes, seeing is happening, the colors, right? Then there's the understanding. Then there's all these things that happen when the mind has settled enough. And Buddhadasa also, right, would say everything at the point of contact is on fire, right? So everything is on fire. So, I mean, are these two kind of the same coin? Where is it worth observing even further, right? So you're in jhana, you see like the dukkha and you avoid it easily. But to see those minute interactions, does that lead to further skill and quenching?
I would offer this as an answer for that is that our view, just like the Buddha says, view comes first. And he in Sutra number 117 talks about two different opposing views, which would be eternalism and nihilism. And the human operates by going back and forth between the two of them, between, oh, I care so much, and screw it. Okay, so the screw it is nihilism, and I care so much would be I care a long time is eternal my caring. Right. So what I'm getting at is that as we mature in the Dhamma, our view erodes, let us say one layer at a time, till eventually we come to the view of emptiness. But we have to peel back the layers of our view, and that the view before emptiness would be the view of joy. And so we can peel back all of those eternalistic and nihilistic views that we hold, one view, one layer at a time, until we get down to nothing matters except for joy. That's the only thing that matters. And then we can peel off that layer too, so that we get down to even joy doesn't matter anymore. Nothing matters. You have heard the story that there's a thing called mind over matter. We're working with that a lot. Because if you don't mind, it don't matter. So that's the whole point then, is to purify the mind of basically all of these various views about what's important and all of that kind of stuff. And for Kawan right now, truth is an important thing for him. For others, protection. They want safety. Others, they want to hide. Okay, so there's a lot of different layers of these views, and if we strip these views away, we'll strip it down to nothing matters much except that everything is okay, everything is fine. We can strip another layer down to, wow, this is really great, I really like this. And then we can strip it down even further to, everything is just as it is. This is what we would call tatata, just as it is. And then we can scrape that layer down, one more layer down to nothing matters. It's okay. So this is the way that we would look at it, is the fact that all of this Paticca Samuppada teaching is all about stripping away those various layers of stories that we tell ourselves. And those stories are based upon feelings until you get down to the point that you can control your feelings. You feel the way that you want to feel. But you can't go from I hate this into nothing matters. You can't go straight there. You got to peel off those layers, and one of the layers you have to peel down to is the joy. You have to be able to, in fact, control your feelings before you can throw even the feelings out. Does that make sense for you, Harold?
Yeah, it does. Although they do say a sotapan, right? They will have dukkha 7 times before they completely throw it out.
Well, let's, instead of thinking about 7 lives or 7 times, let's talk about processing of the mind. An example would be then that something really bad he considers happens, like his wife directs him to the wrong turnoff, which means he's going to have to drive now for miles and miles to get back on track. Or maybe somebody hits your hand with a hammer. You're holding a nail and he doesn't hit the nail, he hits your nail. Okay, so the question then is, how long are you going to repeat that anger? Damn it, watch what you're doing. You hurt me. Now we got to go to the hospital. Oh, my thumb hurts, etc., like that. And most people will just go on and on and on and on and on about it. But the Sotapan is the one who will do a little of that stuff, and then he'll catch himself and stop, because he's beginning to watch closely what's going on in his mind. And so he'll have at least, let us say, 7 outbursts. But later, as he's practicing, somebody hits that thumb with a hammer, and he'll say, and then stop. Just one going. And then he'll stop. And then later, the Anagami then will get his finger hit, and he doesn't say anything. And then later, the Arahat, he's not going to hold nails. Okay? So this is a way of looking at it, is that the Sotapan is not going to get uptight long time. That some people, you've been around people who'll stay uptight and angry about something for days rather than 7 minutes, or just one thing. And maybe he doesn't say anything at all. All right, so this is what we mean by that. That's the progression, is how quickly can you catch yourself being unhappy? How many times do you have to spin that crank before you say, wait a minute, I'm not going to keep turning this crank, I'm going to stop. Alex, what do you have to say?
Oh, good stuff. A Sotapan is one that has seen the Dhamma. That's why they have the confidence in it and everything like that. So regardless of whether or not the shit gets mucked up, they can clean it out. So maybe it's not something that we should look at as unrealistic to know the Dhamma and put it into practice. A lot of people think about that word Sotapana and they get really wrapped up around the idea that it'll take this amount of time or that amount of time. But one of the things that I really like about our community is that we really emphasize that it's always right here, right now. Akaliko, timeless and immediate, always relevant. And when we think of it in that way, we don't concern ourselves with 7 lifetimes or 7 minutes or 7 mind moments because we know it's right here, right now. And I really like that we talk about that so much here. What else?
Right. So we'll have maybe a couple of moments of ignorance, and then we'll catch it. To where ordinary people will have a moment of ignorance, another moment of ignorance, all day ignorance, tomorrow's ignorant too, into next week. That in fact, some cultures have hatred going for generations.
Yeah.
As the song
crazy.
goes, the Hindus hate the Muslims, and the Muslims hate the Christians, and the Christians hate the Hindus, and everybody hates the Jews. All right. What is that? It's just ignorance, 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 ignorance. So the question is, how long did it take us to wake up? The more you practice, the faster you're going to wake up. And this is what the real teaching is to pay attention by slowing down and stop reacting with hatred and start looking at how we feel. And then we can change how we feel.
Yeah, and another thing I thought of while we were talking is the Buddha highly praised what he called the escape from feeling. And he talked about that a few times, and it's something that I like to keep in mind as well, is that we have that escape from feeling. It doesn't need to drive your entire life, like we spoke about earlier.
Mm-hmm. That feelings, in fact, is let's rephrase that to say change of feelings is what the Buddha actually teaches. Change it from worry into happiness. Change the way we feel from full of hatred into being okay. Change the way we feel from I want it, I gotta have it, into feeling everything is okay. Or to change the way we feel, that damn kid better behave or I'm going to slap him because I love him so much. into, hey, the kid's okay. He's just not doing what I want him to do. So this is the whole point. And we can say that in fact, Buddhadasa talks about it's a change model. But what he's really indicating is that what needs to be changed is our feelings. And the Sotapan getting pretty good at changing his feelings. But the Arahant is very good at avoiding them altogether. That's why the Arahant has the worldview of, well, it's all empty anyway. It's empty of nails. I don't have to go hold nails for somebody with a dumb hammer. So, let's see. Amar, what do you think?
Oh,
Yes.
well, this is the. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, this is my first time joining the one of these. Because Scott had told me about it, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to. I've been trying to do the practice, but I don't know if I'm doing it correctly. But it's what's worked for me so far is kind of just whenever I think a thought of like desire or like worry, I kind of just when I catch it, just find myself thinking like, oh, well, this moment is fine as it is, and then it kind of like helps spin out of it, and I feel good when I do that when I catch it. But I don't know if is that the way to do it or like.
When that thought that you just talked about, am I doing it right? That's an unwholesome thought. That comes out of doubt and out of worry. People get really worried. Am I practicing anapanasati, practicing meditation correctly? And when they're worried about doing it correctly, they're not doing it correctly.
Right. Right.
So the way to do it is to stop the worry. I don't have to worry about doing it correctly. I'm having too much fun to get it right.
Right. That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, Carl wants to get it right. He wants to be true. He wants to get it rather than saying it's more important to feel good than it is to get it right.
Right.
Don't worry, be happy. That's the practice, is to being able to change our feelings. And when you're worried about changing our feelings right, then you're worried. That's not being happy.
It is pretty funny when it's put so simply. It is. Yeah.
So, Mr. Ben, what do you have to say? Give us some wisdom from Hanoi.
Everything's already good enough. And relax.
Right. So he's coming from that everything is already okay. No worries. Not a problem in the world. That's a pretty high state. That means he's been doing quite a lot of grinding. Stripping those layers away.
Doing quite a lot of nothing.
So Navid, what do you think?
Did you call my name?
I'm imbibing
Yes,
the whole
Navid.
thing.
Right ahead.
I really appreciate it. It is. Sometimes I can't believe the words are coming out of your mouth because they speak so deeply to me. So I just, I'm full of appreciation for this.
Yes, let it touch you deeply so that you can catch it quickly. Let this be your motive of operation rather than the old motives of fear, disgust, anger, getting it right into the motive of operation is, hey, let's have a ball here.
Wow. Yes.
So, Rose, what do you think?
I think this is excellent, and I have nothing else to add.
All right. Scott, lay it on us, friend.
Oh, it's great. Good stuff. Yeah, it's all empty. None of it matters. I like that. That's the view I take. I mean, when I remember to, I get mad about something. I think, oh, my feelings hurt because they took this away from me, or all those kinds of things. I realize, oh, I don't have to fix that. I just need to fix my attitude, and I can be happy right now. And it's that simple. It's really that simple. Like all your worries can melt away, So thank you. Yeah.
So, does anybody have any last things to say?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dhammarato. Thank you, Mikey.
So,
Thank you.
Mikey, why don't you pack this thing up and send it out here?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, friends, for being here today. What a nice call. Yeah, if you're watching this online, come join us on the Dhamma Friends Discord. There's a link in the YouTube video description. You can also find a link on the YouTube homepage. We also have the Open Sangha Foundation .org website. You can find all sorts of Dhamma books there. We have a Open Sangha map with watts and things like that. There's all sorts of many resources on that website as well. So yeah, go check them out. And yeah, you can also listen to these talks on Spotify, iTunes, or any other podcasting service. So yeah, take care, everyone. Take it easy and enjoy.
All right, so I'm going to be leaving now. and that Mike is going to turn the video recorder off. And I invite everybody here to stay and to say hi to each other. You can talk about what we've discussed on this hour or any other Dhamma topic that you like, with the intention of, let's make some friends. Let's have some good friends here. This is all about Sangha. This is not a guru-sila relationship with a one up, one down, but we're all kind of in it together. So stay a while and make some friends. You've got a lot of people on the call today. So stay on while I go away. We'll see you
Dhammarato.
guys later. But don't hang up now.
Yeah.
Stay a while.
All right.